Welcome back to the channel, guys. JC Trails coming out of retirement to bring you another bike review. Today we'll be reviewing the 2023 Trek Fuel EX frame-up build. This will be the most extensive Fuel EX review on the internet. Over the past year of ownership, I've tried every setting on the Fuel EX. I've tried the adjustable head cups, high and low BB setting, full 29er, mullet setup, ran it with a coil shock, air shock, 160mm Lyric fork, 150mm Pike fork, various tires, and wheel sets. And throughout this video, guys, I'll be making a direct comparison to my old trail bike, the Stumpjumper Evo. It just made sense for me to compare the two, with the Stumpjumper having the same adjustability, the ability to make it a mullet, and with similar travel numbers. All right, let's get into this review and talk about how the Trek Fuel EX climbs. With its medium-large frames, this bike fits me perfectly. I'm 5'10", about 175 pounds, and I haven't ridden a bike that fits me this perfect. With its steep seat tube angle and generous top tube numbers, I don't feel too cramped. I don't feel like I'm reaching too far. It just fits very similar to my Trek Top Fuel. If you haven't seen that review video, I'll leave a card up here in the right hand corner. Also, if you want to see the geometry of the Fuel EX, I'll make sure I leave a link in the description below to Trek's website, so go check it out. But right now, let's just talk about how this bike climbs. On smooth climbs like you're seeing on the screen, the Trek Fuel excels really well. Minimal bob, very comfortable seating position like I said, and it just scoots. The only thing I do notice with the Fuel EX, it's a stout frame. A lot of carbon in this frame, and it's pretty beefy. It feels more like I'm riding an enduro bike that pedals really well. I did have a chance to climb on the Fuel EX with the air shock and a Super Deluxe coil. I do prefer the coil shock on this while climbing, even though you're dragging more weight uphill. The small bump nature of the coil just provided a lot more traction on the Fuel EX, so it really helps you get up these technical climbs. With the air shock, it just kind of skipped along the top, so if you're doing smooth climbs, it was great. I also had a chance to climb on the Fuel EX in its mullet setup, full 29er setup, the 160 fork and the 150 bike, lightweight wheel set, and more enduro size wheel set. And I would say obviously the best setup for climbing on this bike would be a light revolve control wheel set I had, the Pike fork, and the air shock, just because it made the bike feel that much lighter. Once you put a Lyric enduro wheel set and a coil, you do notice the way it feels like you are lugging up a big enduro rig with less travel. My preferred setting for the Fuel EX during climbing is to have the adjustable head cups in the steep setting. That allows the Fuel EX to have a 65.5 degree head tube angle with a 150mm fork. With a steeper head tube angle, it was just easier to do tight cutbacks during climbing. With the bottom bracket, I kept that in the low position. In the high position, the seat tube angle was just a little bit too steep, put a lot of pressure on my wrist, so I liked it in the low. Just created a nice balanced feel going uphill. And also I liked running the full 29er wheel set on here. During the mullet setup with the 27.5 back wheel, I felt like it just got hung up a little bit more and just lost a little bit of traction. So the 29er wheel set was the way to go. All right, let's compare the Fuel EX to the Stumpjumper Evo, how it climbs. Well, first of all, the geometry for the medium-large frame feels a whole lot better. The Stumpjumper was S3 size, which is like a medium. It's a little small for me, and the large is a little big. So having the Fuel EX right in between those sizes fits me perfectly, just puts me in a more comfortable position. The Fuel EX also just pedals a little bit better, is a little bit more efficient, but the Stumpjumper has better traction on the climb, so if you're doing more technical climbs, Evo is the way to go. Also, the Stumpjumper Evo felt a little bit lighter. It felt like it just climbed with a little bit more ease to the top. Even though that the Fuel EX pedaled better, it just felt a little bit hefty. Even with the air shock and the lighter weight wheel set, I still feel like the Stumpjumper Evo felt like a lighter bike to climb. I didn't really weigh both bikes, but it's just how it feels. But who'd I give the crown to for the climbing king between the Evo and the Fuel EX? I have to go with the Fuel EX just because of its medium-large size.
Oh, you completely mudded.
Now let's talk about how the Fuel EX descends. And the first setting I'd like to talk about while descending is the way you buy it from Trek, from your bike store. That's with a 150 millimeter fork, 140 millimeter Fox Float X rear shock, 29er wheel set, the minnow flip chip in the low position, and the head tube angle cups in the neutral position, which approximately gives you a 64.5 degree head tube angle. The Fuel EX in the stock setting feels really neutral. The 64.5 degree head tube angle coupled with a 440 millimeter chainstay really centers you in the bike. Where the stock setting shines is in flow trails. Having that nice balanced feel provides excellent traction in berm turns and just really tight situations. And having that 150 millimeter fork and 140 millimeters of rear travel still has the bike feeling pretty lively.
Oh my God. This trail's so fun. Beeline.
In the stock setting though, once I reached any kind of technical terrain, especially with the stock Fox Float X, the bike or the rear end would get upset pretty easily. It knocked me offline, and then I just lost confidence once I hit some more rockier technical terrain. To remedy that harsh feeling the Fox Float X provided over technical terrain, I decided to purchase a 2023 RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate with the hydraulic bottom out. This was an absolute game changer for the Fuel EX. The coil provided a really nice small bump sensitivity and traction, but it being a coil, it's very linear. The cool thing about the Fuel EX frame is that you can just flip a chip at the bottom of one of the shock mounts and the frame becomes more progressive. Also coupled with the hydraulic bottom out, there was never any harsh bottom out with the coil. When you do a G out or when you have a drop, it just handled it. So it was absolute game changer. Yes, you do have to lug more weight around, but it's totally worth it. After installing the 160 millimeter air spring into the Lyric fork, then I decided to purchase a new wheel set. So I went with the Crank Brother Synthesis aluminum wheel set with an Industry 9 1-wood hubs mullet setup. So now with the 160 millimeter fork, you're able to run a mullet setup. As long as you put the minnow flip chip in the high position, you are good to go. Keeps the geometry pretty consistent with the full 29er setup in the low. So ran that. Did I encounter a couple more pedal strikes? Yes, I think the bottom bracket does drop. I didn't measure it, but it feels like it's lower, which makes it awesome for flow trails, drops, jumps. It just transformed the bike, made it a little bit more playful. I thought it was way more effective as a mullet than the Stumpjumper as a mullet. So when I did the Stumpjumper into a mullet, it didn't really do much. It kind of just made the bike feel slower. Yes, it kind of got the wheel out of the way if you're doing steep rolls or doing drops. You didn't buzz your butt on the back tire. But this mullet setup on the Fuel EX actually transforms the bike. It makes it feel like a bull party bike, even though it has a big 160 millimeter Lyric up front. Where I really enjoyed riding was jump trails and flow trails. This is where the Fuel EX with the mullet setup just really shined, that I noticed. And also you do have the added benefit of when you do a drop or a steep roll, you don't buzz your butt on the 29er wheel set. So really cool that you have all these different setups for the Fuel EX. Once I had the mullet set up on the bike, then I went back to the slacker head tube angle, so I had to flip the hookups again, which is not easy. Kind of a pain in the butt, to be honest. So it's not something you do every day or every ride. It probably takes you about 20 to 30 minutes or maybe even longer to swap the cups out, because you have to swap the top and the bottom. Is that they actually charge you for these cups. They don't come with the bike. Like Specialized actually comes with the head cups, or the one head cup, the top one, so you could change the geometry. This one you have to pay approximately about $40 for the top and bottom, so an additional $80 cost to you. With the Fuel EX now in the slackest position and mullet setup, it felt like a little party bike. Definitely a cool bike to probably bring to like the bike park, because you could just do the steepest of rolls and you can still send some pretty big drops. The hydraulic bottom mount on this coil is pretty nice, like I said, coupled with the progressive nature of the frame. When you flip that little chip on the shock mount, it's a lot of support. So really fun bike to do that kind of stuff. It's cool that you have the opportunity to swap it, but not the easiest thing to do. The last setting I'd like to talk about is the lightweight setting. So this is when the Fuel EX has a 150 millimeter pike, a RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate Air Shock, the lightweight Revolve Control wheels, some lightweight trail tires, and I think that's it. Oh, and I put the cups back in the steep setting to make it feel more like a traditional trail bike. So guess what? While descending on this lightweight configuration, the bike feels pretty much like my Trek Top Fuel downcountry bike, if you want to call it. It almost feels like just a lightweight, or a heavy actually, trail bike. The bike still doesn't feel that light, even though I probably dropped a couple pounds with these lightweight wheels, fork, and air shock. It's, in my opinion, not worth the do, because if you're just doing that kind of riding, you're better off served riding a Top Fuel. But if you only have one bike, it is nice to have the option to lighten up the bike and just ride some more pedally trails with this setup. So let's compare how this Fuel EX descends to the Stumpjumper Evo, and that really varies on your size and your riding style. So I would like to say if you're a 5'8" person who actually fits a medium bike, I would say go Stumpjumper all day. Or if you're about 6 foot, then you can go with the S4 or large size in the Stumpjumper Evo. But if you're like me, with the 5'10" stature or 5'9", this medium large just fits so nice. It's a very comfortable bike to ride for myself, descending or climbing. Also, your riding style plays into which bike you'd pick. The Stumpjumper Evo, I feel like you have to be more of a line choice, kind of dance on top of the trail rider, if that makes sense. It doesn't plow as well as this Fuel EX. I don't know if it's just because of Fuel EX. It just, the weight of it, coupled with the coil, it just feels more planted, and it just kind of chews up the terrain. The Stumpjumper Evo, I did run with the exact same coil and the same fork, and it still feels a little bit more poppy, a little bit more playful, a little bit more light on its feet. But the back end does get disrupted a little bit easier. Even though it has 10 millimeters more travel in the rear and front, I picked the Fuel EX for more of that enduro feel or plowy bike. Finally, let's talk about my favorite setting for the Fuel EX, and that is what I like to call the trail bike setting. That's the head cup set to the steepest angle, 65.5. Pair that with the RockShox Lyric fork set to 150 millimeters. I loved running the coil on this bike, so I'm going to pick the coil over the air shock any day just for its supple nature. I also like to run the full 29er wheel set. It just rolls faster, provides better traction on the climbs and descents and the corners. It doesn't get around as quick as the Mullet, but I just like the 29er wheel set in general just for its fast rolling nature. And I also like the bottom bracket in the low position, because when you have it in the high, I feel like it steepens the seat tube angle just a touch and puts a little bit too much pressure on my wrists. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please subscribe, like. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!